Okay.
Now I should be able to.
You got it. We got you.
You got me.
Yeah.
Okay.
So bring up your PowerPoint and
Yes.
let's just stay here as we'll wait until everybody gets in about 4 minutes after 7, and then we'll start. And we'll let you go first. How's that?
Okay, fine.
Barry, you
Not
don't
a problem.
Barry, you don't mind, do you? Perfect. Thank you, Barry.
Now you should have me on a full screen
so
here.
now if you go over to on the very top where it says slideshow.
Yeah.
And click on that.
Yeah.
Go over on over the far right there from the beginning. That'll make you full screen.
Yeah, right. Oh.
Okay. There we go.
Okay.
Perfect.
You got the full screen now.
Yep.
Okay, very good. I'll just leave it there, and you could take it off and control it from your end.
Well,
right?
No, we're just going to leave it sit there. I can see people coming in.
Okay, fine. Very good.
Pete, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Are you going to stay the whole time, and I can introduce you later, or do you just want to say hi and goodbye?
That depends on how much you guys are gluttons for punishment.
We're okay. I
have a good idea that involves not chiming in as much as you might think on your meeting.
It's okay.
I can see Barry Silverthorne there nodding his head up and down, saying yes, and he's smiling while he's doing it. Yep, come on, smile. There you go. And so on. So if
I don't smile
when you light this off, I'm happy to try not to choke on my M&M here.
Gotcha.
And basically welcome the newest division of the NMRA, and hope to get Barry back when I shut up.
Give me like 5 more minutes because people are still coming in. So I told them 7. So I'm going to
7 o'clock meeting.
Exactly. And we start promptly.
My kids had a band teacher several years ago, decades ago now. And he had a very simple philosophy. To be early is to be on time. To be on time is to be late.
Yeah. I got it. We just so you know, Pete, we've invited the ID division. We invited the Lakeshore division and the Division 12 out of Erie. So, and then Chuck and I talked, we texted actually, and Garden State, right, Chuck?
Yes, that's right.
Garden State Division will also be here.
Hey, hi,
sounds
Chuck.
like Mr. Diljack. It is Mr. Diljack.
How you doing, Pete?
Hi, Chuck.
Hey, Chuck, did you get my email that I sent this afternoon?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. I'd like
All right, one of the things this is doing for me, Andy, is proving to me that I need better technology.
Or
on an iPad, I can see 4 people at a time.
Yeah, there should be an arrow button where you can keep scrolling down to see everybody.
I can scroll sideways, but not up and down.
Oh, okay.
And
yeah, that's what you have to do is scroll sideways. Same thing for me, Andy. It's Frank.
Okay.
And the question is, how do I pronounce it? Is it Delacono?
Yeah, that's close enough.
How close is close enough?
Della Iacano.
Hey, how are you?
Delacono.
He's Irish.
Yeah, through and through.
Yeah. Don't worry about it.
I even kissed the Blarney Stone.
There you go.
I got 18 on so far. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I'd have to say Utman or something similar there. Maybe I need a wee dram to go deal with this. Me being Scottish and all, whatever.
You know, I'm Scottish and Irish, and you know what that means, don't you?
I bite.
Conflict?
Thank you. Thanks, Fred. Well, if you're Scottish and Irish, I like to drink, but I don't want to have to pay for it. How you doing, Ned?
I'm doing good.
Okay.
Wait a minute, who's coughing?
That was me. Just
Just a second,
allergies.
please.
Yeah. If you're coughing, use a face mask.
Okay.
Right, Utman.
I was at a store today and I saw a guy walking around with a cup of coffee and a face mask. I wanted to ask him how he was able to manage that.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I
No,
was in the bank a while back, and this guy comes charging in. He's wearing a face mask, and he's coughing and yelling and screaming and so on. We're getting a little bit uptight about this. And then he yells, "This is a stick-up," so we all relaxed.
Got it.
can he?
Bill Brown, thanks for coming, Bill.
Hey, good to see you guys. How you doing?
Great.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Ask him if he can see you.
Andy, Bob Shive here.
Hey, Bob, how are you, buddy?
Good. Very good.
Good. Great.
Hanging
Thanks
in
for
there.
coming.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting me. Are you getting any thunder in your place?
Just a little bit, not a lot.
We've got sunshine out here and thunder, but no rain yet.
I got it. We're just going to wait just a little bit longer
Sure.
as people keep popping in,
Good.
because I don't want to interrupt Fred's presentation. I've seen this before. Chuck had invited me to Garden State, and Fred did it there, and that's why I asked him to do it for us. It's really kind of interesting to see what happens.
Very good. Looking forward to it.
Hi, Bill.
Hey, folks. How you doing?
They letting you golf?
I played this morning. Tomorrow will be my 8th day in a row.
Okay.
I love it.
Did it?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Carl.
Carl.
And these guys from the
Can
central.
you bring it a little
Western Europe.
closer? Can you bring it a little closer?
Hi, Jeannie.
Who said hi?
Ned.
Hey, Ned, how are you?
Where's Ned?
Okay.
Where's the rest of the people? Where's she?
Hi, Gordon.
Hi. We don't know where you are. We're trying to figure this thing out. We only see like 3 people. Let's try this again.
How do we?
Oh, there you are.
Hey,
Hi.
you were there.
Ask him how to get Galaxy, get everybody. I don't know
Andy, how do we get everyone?
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Oh,
Right
my.
now, I think with the presentation on, you can see Fred's presentation queued up there.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a panel thing until the presentation goes down again.
Okay, very good. Gotcha.
Frank. Hi, Frank.
Hello, Gene. How are you? Hi, Gordon.
Hi. How are you?
Excellent. Weather's
Is it pretty-
perfect in Western New York. I'm looking forward to both of these clinics today. This is going to be a great meeting. Andy and I have been doing this on and off for the last couple of weeks. This is our first one with out-of-town folks doing presentations.
You look pretty good.
How do you get rid of all? Just leave it.
Yeah.
I even do exercise in the morning on Zoom. My classes are Monday,
that
Wednesday,
I'm
and
not-
Friday.
That I'm not doing. I broke 2 ribs and fractured
Oh,
a
boy.
vertebrae.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I know. So I'm not doing all that great, but I'm better. Just doing gardening. Don't garden.
Now, is this a COVID 19 video with toilet paper that we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I got 5
Hard
after,
to get
so
that stuff these
um,
days.
I guess let's get started. First, I want to thank all of you for coming. Unfortunately, this is the way our meetings are going to have to be for a little bit. We are planning on doing a distant social distancing picnic on July 25th or 6th, Frank. I figure it's a Saturday.
Yeah.
And we're hoping that will, and we're doing it at a place called Mud Creek where we can actually ride the train. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how that works out. But tonight we've got 2 great presentations. Fred Delicano is going to do the first one here for us on using toilet paper as water. And the interesting thing about this is I watched it. Chuck invited me to the Garden State presentation, and that's where I saw it. And I asked Fred if he would do this for us, and he said, yeah. And then we got Barry Silverthorne from Rumetz, and Frank talked to him, and I talked to him, and he was more than gracious to do a presentation for us on the Rumetz. So it'll be kind of fun to see everybody. Right now, Fred has control of the computer, so I can't mute everybody. So either mute yourself or be be silent in the background so that Fred can talk. And I want to mention that Pete Monaghan, our national president, is here. And Pete, I can't thank you enough for showing up and for being part of this with us.
Actually, this is an interesting topic for discussion because one of my neighbors is modeling the Ann Arbor from boat landing in Frankfort, Michigan to Cadillac circa 1930, and he is now looking at interesting ways to come up with water. And the usual, oh, you got to pour 52 layers of whatever, color it and so on, isn't working. So he's got some interesting ideas. I'm looking forward to seeing what Fred has to say because I suspect that there will be some synergy there.
Gotcha.
And I don't know why I'm suddenly showing all red. That's my shirt reflecting, but I don't know. Is this any better?
It's okay to me.
I would like to thank everybody in the newest division of the NMRA for getting themselves involved, active, doing things, doing stuff like Zoom meetings, for instance, which are tying a lot of us together. There's a downstate division right now that's going to be doing some stuff with a Texas group and a group in the Pacific Southwest. If you work out the time zones and everything on that, it becomes a very interesting cultural experience. But this is a way we tie ourselves together. One of the benefits of the NMRA is that I have friends right now in 8 countries on 4 continents as a result of this organization. Think about that, guys. 8 countries, 4 continents, and they're friends. This is good. So I want to hear what Fred has to say.
Okay, Fred, why don't you take it away? If somebody's watching television, could you turn it off? I can hear something.
Yeah, somebody's talking in the background there.
Yeah.
Everybody should mute your screen.
Okay.
Touch the screen at the top.
Andy, you have the ability to, as host, you have the ability to mute everybody except whoever it is that you want to hear.
I understood. However, I've given control to Fred. So Fred, you might want to look on the bottom right and see if there's a mute all.
It's not us.
Do you see it?
Okay. Well, it's quiet now.
Okay, so
Okay.
why don't you get started?
Okay, well, first off, thanks a lot, Andy, for inviting me. It is a very unique subject matter. I just want to give a brief note about myself, my railroad. The name of my railroad is Ramapo Central. It's a freelance railroad set in the mid-1940s with a New England flavor. The trains I run are short, normally
I don't have a picture. When he muted everybody, I lost the picture.
Yeah, we don't want to be looking at me. We want to be looking at Fred or Fred's picture.
Yeah, but we can't see the whole thing.
I have no idea.
You
It was,
back on again?
But you started moving these things back and forth.
Okay.
I see a little goofy on the thing.
Oh, it took 15 minutes for her to get me.
Find the guy who's talking.
Tell me when you want me to go, Andy.
Okay, okay, Fred. So
Okay.
if you have comments to each other, don't make them. Don't play your TV because we can hear everything. If you see your box light up, you're interrupting Fred. So,
Do you have a picture?
Fred, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have his picture.
Yeah.
So, as I said,
Not this guy.
the trains I run are short, about 7 cars or so, and are all pulled by light steam, no diesels. The layout is about 10 by 21 feet, and it's about as
No,
complete
they went
as
from this guy to this guy. And
as I would like it to be. In addition to running the trains, I look for things to remove, reconfigure, and rebuild, which led me into this project. For well over a year, I've been toying with the idea of expanding my waterfront scene, but I didn't want to use the materials currently on the market, mainly resins. So I just let it be.
Randy.
About a year ago, or several months ago, I should say, I came across a video on Facebook. Model realistic ocean wave water scenery with waves by Markland of Sweden. A very interesting video, and you may want to make a note of that. It's on YouTube. This is where I took the concept from, and I did pretty much what he suggested doing. Primarily, the materials are common, toilet paper and white glue, and that is it. This is the scene as it was before I started work. It was a pretty nice scene, and I was really proud of it, and I hesitated for a long time before I decided to do something with it and to expand it. The scene is about 3 foot long and about 6 inches deep. That's the water on it. And it's made just by paint and some acrylic medium over it.
Huh?
You should have.
I don't. I got that. When I switched to this guy, I didn't get no picture.
Hey, George, you're talking over the top of Fred.
Well, when you went from you to Frank to Andy and then went to Fred, I got no picture. All I got listening to him talk, but no picture of him.
Same with me, Andy.
Are you both on iPads?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that may be the reason. It's not Fred. On regular computers, you can see everybody. It's something you have on your settings for your iPads.
But we had them on there before. Whatever you guys did when you switched, we lost it.
Right. When you switched back and forth, we lost it.
I'll hold up until you get it all together. Let me know when you want me to go.
I have no.
Now you switched to him, and then the picture went out.
I have no idea how to help because I can't.
No, but ours is all right. We have it. Those guys don't have that picture. That's what they're talking about.
You guys back online?
No picture.
No picture. I see everybody down below. If I scroll with my hand, everybody who's online with a video, I see them, but we don't see the presenter.
Yeah, I don't know what.
All right. Can I inject here a minute?
Sure.
It's Gordon. We were on iPad, and I went to screen share. Would that have messed things up? I went to screen share, and all of a sudden I got to see your topic, but I can't see anything. It just kind of like stopped.
Mine says you cannot start screen share while the other participant is sharing.
Okay. So then I probably screwed that up.
No, I don't think so.
I think just the presenter should use the screen share.
Yep.
That's correct.
Okay, then that's what I touched. I touched screen share. So how do they undo screen share? I'm an iPad. Sorry,
It's
newbie.
okay. You all back up again?
Nope.
No, the iPad people can't get on. They can't see it, and I
I'm on an iPad.
technically I don't know how to. Fred, are you on it?
I can ask a
I'm
quick
on an
question.
iPad, but I don't have any problem.
I use Zoom all the time for my job. If I could just ask the iPad guys, what exactly are you not seeing? Are you not seeing the presenter on the right-hand side or along the top, or is it the actual picture of the layout that he's changing? What exactly can't you see?
All right.
When the presenter starts talking, I see nothing but a blank screen.
Yeah, we see that little silhouette, which means your video's not playing.
All right, what I saw was all the icons on the bottom, and whoever I was looking at was, hold on, Ron Kemp. I was looking at Ron Kemp. He was up there, and I went to screen share, and then out came with this thing with showing the wharf, and now I have this like a frozen screen. Out came the saw and scraper, and I can see everybody on the bottom. I see you guys are muted, but we are not, and I have no idea how to unmute or mute ourselves.
Okay, the mute's in the upper right-hand corner.
Top way up mute. Okay, hold on, wait. Mute.
Tap the upper right-hand corner. And then
Upper right-hand corner is all the controls on an iPad.
Yes.
And there should be a little picture of a microphone. Hit the microphone, and a little line will slash through it. Means you're off. Your volume's off. You're muted.
Are you not able to still gain the picture, Frank?
Nope.
I'll hold off until you guys get it all together. No
Don't worry about
problem.
it. Continue on.
Yeah, Fred, just go ahead.
Are you recording this?
I am recording it.
I'll catch it on the recording. I'm getting offline. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll
Okay,
watch
well,
it. I'll watch it on the recording too. Thank you.
Okay. Well, after all is said and done, I finally decided to take action, and out came the saw, and I cleared away what was the old scene. This is what it looks like without the water and the seawall.
I'm out of there.
Oh,
You're still on.
okay.
I cleared out then.
Imagine if you're at work trying to do a meeting and this is I mean.
Yeah.
George.
Nice idea, but
okay. Well, this is how it looks after it's all cleaned out. I started the rebuild, the first attempt at the rebuild. This rebuild was 2 attempts. The first rebuild was to lay the base in, lay in the seawall, and I started to fool around with how the piers were going to look and the position of the buildings. My first plan was to have a wharf track, as you could see in the picture. And it looked pretty interesting the way it was, and I started to continue going.
Okay, Google. What's the temperature outside?
Oh.
In Lockport, it's currently 80 degrees.
After I built the walls up, the sea walls that are all in place, I took a look at it. I said, gee, I could make this scene bigger yet, which was really what I wanted to do in the first place. So I saw that spot there where the 2 blue arrows are, and I said, this could make a nice addition. So out came the sword, down came the seawalls, and I expanded it one more time. Here you can see with the new positioning in place, and unfortunately, this picture shows the first layer of
Let's see what the heck the guy does with toilet paper and
of the toilet paper, but I'll get into that.
I know what
in
he
a
does
moment.
with it.
Yeah.
He
Unfortunately,
takes
when
it
I
and
was
he
doing
does
this,
it with white glue, and he just takes little strips of it and he puts it in like for a weight for
yeah.
water.
Water.
Okay. So this is what it looked like. That spot there that I just expanded, I wanted something very unique. I had something in mind, but not quite finalized yet. You can see where the fish is peering now without the pier in place and how it's sticking out. I like the looks of it, so I continued.
Let's use on the phone.
Frank.
Wireless.
Okay, guys, hang on one second. It's Frank telling George to turn the off.
Sorry about that. That was
Yeah.
Okay. As far as the materials go, this is it. Toilet paper, white glue, a brush, and some old-fashioned H2O.
Hopefully it's off.
The procedure is as follows. First, coat your surface with diluted white glue. I usually use about a 50-50, water and glue.
Yeah.
Just paint the whole surface with the white glue and lay a layer of toilet paper down. Break the toilet paper into perforated pieces into little squares and just lay it on top of the white glue. I did that whole area there that you saw at one time. While the glue is still wet, you coat the paper again with another coat of glue right on top of that. And then you lay another layer of paper on top of that. And you do this for 3 layers. The last layer of glue, of paper, you coat that surface with white glue also. It's going to take time for the glue because of all the water content and all. It's really hard. And so you've got time. You really don't have to rush this process at all. Using the same brush that you used to put the glue on, you stipple the surface of the paper. And this is the fun part because this is where you make your waves and get your contours. If you have a boat that's already built and you want to show waves around the boat, you place the boat on the top of the wet toilet paper and form your waves either with a brush or maybe with a toothpick or some kind of other soft material so you don't tear the paper. And you can make your waves, your bow waves, and your stern wake and everything else you want to make about it. And that's it. And you let it dry thoroughly. It takes about a day to dry really hard. The surface is pretty durable. Here you can see the finished product of the waves. What looks like deep depressions are only shadows, and the glue, how it dries, doesn't dry uniformly. The surface is pretty flat, except for the waves that you see in there. Those are not really depressions that are showing up in the picture. It's flat. Again, you can take your time. It has a long shelf life before it sets up, and you can really work it the way you'd like it to be. Once that is set, these are my basic watercolors, titanium white, black, light gray, the list of colors that you are trying to do. Since I'm from New York, I know what black, dirty, murky water looks like, New York Harbor. It's not really, it's never blue. So most of my water is more in the black and navy blue shades with a little bit of green put in to make it look murky and oily. The other thing I use is to give you the shine or the waves for shape is an acrylic high gloss medium. I happen to use something manufactured by Dick Blick, who's a big art dealer out of Chicago. Mod Podge also makes something you can get at your local Staples or other such store. Just make sure that it is high gloss, because they call it a gloss medium, but it's not medium gloss. So get the high gloss. And just a variety of brushes to put your paint on. I'm not going to get into that, how you want to do it. If you have a photograph you're trying to emulate, use that as a guide rather than what I have here. I painted after the glue dries. I gave it a coat of paint, and you could see what I did. I even put in the tops of the waves there. And then I gave it the first coat of gloss medium directly on top of that. What I love about this process is this. After I had on the whole gloss medium, you let that dry completely for maybe a day, overnight, I should say. I found out I had too much white wave tips showing. It did not look well. So I took out the acrylic paints and I painted right on top of the gloss medium and I toned it down. And then I re-glossed on top of that again. So there was no mess, no fuss, no nothing about it. It's easy to fix your mistakes. This is what it looks like close up with three coats of medium. At least this is to my satisfaction. To show how versatile this is, if you're not using a harbor scene, and let's say you're doing a dry riverbed. Oh, I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. Here's a couple of more pictures of the entire waterfront there, how it looks. Get a better feel for what it looks like now. You can see the green showing through and the black. I'm not very particular how it all goes down because water is not uniform in color.
That's all from toilet paper?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
Gloss coat. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
Here's another picture of the scene from a different angle, giving you a different reflection of the light.
Holy crap. Did you ever think of that?
And another one now. This shows the Fisher's Pier being set in place. But again, I'm more concerned about the water than I am about the buildings right now. Again, Fisher's Pier in place with the building on top. That's a Kitbash building there, as I'm sure you could recognize. And a boat. I did not put the bow waves on the boat because I didn't know where it was going to be. That scene that I had, let me go back a moment there. Over there on the left, you can see that opening there, and I wanted something different. And I had envisioned some kind of a marine supply company, but I wanted to make it very unique. So I searched the web until I found a couple of inexpensive buildings. Although I'm Italian, I have a lot of Scotch in me because I'm very cheap when it comes to putting things down on the railroad. I found these two buildings, which I kind of looked at and said, these things would make an interesting combination of supply buildings. I think the total for the two buildings was under $40. So I bought them. I built them to some degree the way it shows there. And then I had visions of how the pier would look. I wanted the pier in two levels since I have a high seawall. That seawall is about 2 inches high. And I thought, well, small boats would have a hard time docking against that high seawall. So I built the pier in two steps, with one building going on top and the other one going down lower. This is the underside of the pier. I think I over-designed it to some degree, but nevertheless, I think I could sit on it and it wouldn't fall apart.
It's a very Italian name.
These are the two buildings I
They
built.
can't hear us, can they?
Mm-hmm.
They can hear us now? Thought we were on mute.
Okay.
Yeah. We rejoined.
These are the two buildings for the marine supply, as I call them. They're pretty well kit-bashed and added upon. But again, I'm looking at the water scene now and the water, how it appears and how it reflects and everything else. And I'm quite pleased with the way this whole thing showed up. Here's the other part of the lower part of the building. I like to weather my buildings very heavily. And there is Fisher's Pier now complete finished. And the Fishbone Fertilizer Company, how it sits in here. To show you the versatility of this system, I decided to try an experiment and build a little river scene, a little diorama. By changing the colors and the techniques somewhat, here I used the same 3 layers of toilet paper, but I didn't make heavy waves in it. I made kind of like almost stagnant water, and I colored them with the sands and greens and browns, threw a couple of pebbles in there, and you now have what I would consider to be a
showing how to make rivers and
a nice small backwoods river for something like that, using the same technique. No change in the technique whatsoever.
It goes by 8. I don't think we can make it. I was
So,
thinking maybe someday I'd like to go out to my dad's grave and then.
Okay, so as far as I'm concerned, this whole process turned out easy, even for me. The single biggest thing was that there was no mess. I had no plaster drippings to worry about. I didn't have to worry about mixing epoxy. I didn't have to worry about any bubbles in the epoxy. I didn't have to worry about any of that. And also, if I made a mistake and the epoxy hardened, I didn't have to worry about tearing it up or how to tear it up. So this was very forgiving, and I'm prone to making mistakes, so this suited my personality pretty good. And also, it fell into that other main category. It was inexpensive. Cost to make the water? I don't know, your guess is as good as mine, but it's not very expensive whatsoever. So this is now the finished scene as it now appears.
Oh God, that's beautiful.
And the backdrop and what have you.
Oh, yeah.
You can see the water is pretty effective the way it is. I like this kind of a thing over the epoxy because the epoxy tends to be too darn flat. It looks like a mirror. And only mirror lakes look like a mirror. And this is not supposed to be a mirror lake. This is supposed to be a New England seaside type of situation. So this is really the project as it is completed. Well, maybe yes, maybe no. My saw is still out, and I'm thinking, can the waterfront be expanded to include the fruit transfer business? This is a scratch-built building I built, and it represents just a fruit warehouse called Always Fresh. Refrigerated cars come in, they unload onto trucks, and out they go to the wholesalers and retailers. But there's a nice area here, and I'm looking at it and say, gee, could this pier be expanded to include this building, which I happen to like? Looking at it from another angle, well, I'm not really too sure.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a possibility? Perhaps. So I listened down to things. The pier, since I have a two-inch high seawall, the pier would be too short, and it's short for ocean-going vessels, and it'd be too high for barges without some kind of a crane or transfer. There'd be no room for trucks, so the operation would have to be direct ship to rail. And with that kind of an operation, I'd need a building that's enclosed. And the barges would have to be 100 feet. Would it add or take away from the scene? I don't know. So stay tuned, because I have just completed the design to turn that same area into a rail ferry terminal. And the design looks promising. I've submitted to Chuck Diljak for his consideration and comments, and see where we go from here. So that's it, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Fred, thank you. Thanks very much for that.
Thank you.
Don't go. Just let them
Thank
go
you.
on now.
Fred, can you throw the control back to me?
Yep, if I stop share. Okay, it's yours now.
Got it. Okay. All right. Okay, so we seem to be doing much better. Just remember, keep your mics muted so that everybody can hear. And Barry, do you need control from me? You just need to kick in there, correct?
As long as I can share my screen, then you can be the captain.
Yeah, I've got it on share screen, so go ahead and do it. So Barry's going to talk to us about rhumettes. Pete, did you want to say something?
Yes, please. Fred, nice clinic. I have a quick reference that you folks might find interesting. It's a little book, an eminently little readable book called How to Read Water, Clues and Patterns from Puddles to the Sea. It's by a guy named Tristan Gooley. I have sent the information and a link to Andy. And I will just note that I have several years of long-range maritime patrol pilot, submarine hunter, and so on, out over the water, the Pacific, all over north, south, the whole bit, and the Indian Ocean, in addition to living on Grand Traverse Bay here. Water moves because it's not random. Be careful with the whitecaps. They don't just appear. And please, 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 please think before you start slamming whitecaps into that beautiful harbor scene and then have flags on flagpoles hanging down with no wind.
Right.
I have seen, as a national judge in a national contest, an absolutely gorgeous, I think it was Civil War diorama. And the locomotive is sitting there at the station and people are getting on and off and the smoke is going this way. The station flags are going that way. The smoke from the encampment is going that way, or maybe it's this way. And I just kind of wonder, like, what were you thinking? Because there's an environment out there.
Yeah.
Look at it.
Right.
I tried to get the waves all going in
Fred, you did a nice
approximately
job
the same
with that.
direction.
You really did a nice job.
Yeah. The waves I'm very concerned with because I struggled to get them going in what I thought would have been approximately the same direction rather than perpendicular to each other.
Thank you. And the cost of that thing, by the way, I looked it up while you were talking here. The half a roll of toilet paper was $492,612.04.
Oh, that sounds like my eye drops.
Must have been the military buying that.
With an altitude performance requirement for a shipboard generator. Don't go there. I used to do government procurement. All right, I am.
Okay, Barry, it's your turn.
All right. Well, thank you for inviting me. The only other time I've done a clinic, any clinic, really was last fall in Syracuse. And I recognize a few faces from there. So some of you may have actually been at that clinic where we did a make and take on rhumettes. Unfortunately, you don't have one probably in front of you. So if you have a piece of paper, maybe you can fold it and glue it and play along at home. But I'm sorry I don't have one for everybody to try out. So I'd like to do a little slideshow first, and maybe we'll run through it real quickly so it doesn't get too boring. And I'll kind of give you a rundown of what rhumettes are and what you can do with them, and even some things that you can't do with them and things you could do instead. So it's not all about rhumettes. Let me just go over to my slideshow now. And you should see a logo in front of you. Is that good?
It's good.
Okay. Well, there's the advertisement. There's the billboard. Now we can move on. So what are rhumettes? Rhumettes, in their most basic form, are a quick and easy way to add interiors to your structures on your layout, structures from a variety of manufacturers. So what do they do for you? A roulette will create the illusion of 3D in a building using two-dimensional images. There is a laser cut cardstock with printed graphics on them that fold up into a box, origami style. And each one is designed to precisely fit the structure they're intended for. For example, this is a Rick's Small Town Miniatures Sally's Antique Shop. So to create them, I measure the building and then cut up the box that goes in there so that it fits perfectly. I even allow a little slop just in case that the building isn't assembled correctly. There's a little bit of leeway there in case somebody, got a wall a little too short. So they fold together with glue tabs, and you only need a few tools for that. Actually, only 3 tools. A hobby knife like an X-Acto, a popsicle stick or some other device that you can burnish with, and a little bit of tape and some hobby glue. So that's four tools. My kits include the LEDs, and they're compatible with Woodland Scenic's Just Plug system, which probably a lot of you are familiar with, even if you're not using it. And some kits include details and signs. For example, this one, Dale's Place, that sign on the front of the building and up on the side at the top, those are included, and the signs in the window are included, just to kind of keep the theme going on the outside of the building as well, because if I'm making a nice interior, of course, you're going to want to have signs to match on the outside too, especially if you're lighting up the outside like this one is. So where did I get the idea for this in the first place? And a lot of people have said to me, wow, I wish I'd thought of that. It's so simple. And some days I'm just amazed that not everyone came up with the idea first. As some of you know, I was the executive producer of Train Masters TV for 5 years. And on this show, we did a series called Think Small. You know what? I can't even remember. It was based on the Toma theory, and we built these 3 modules and covered the steps involved to build them. And if you can see in this photo, there's a couple of lights there that we got from Woodland Scenics, and I put them in and wired them up. And I'm not the kind of guy who will turn the lights out during an operating session. I like all the lights on. I like to see what I'm doing. I like to see what I'm knocking over and breaking. But when I put these lights on, even with the layout lights on, it just made the scene pop. And you can't see that here in this photo, but it just added a little bit of life to that scene. And I thought, well, what can I do on my own layout to do the same thing on my own layout, especially with interiors, because I model a cloudy day. My backdrops are all gray, and my lighting is a little dimmer than most people. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to kind of make my structures pop. And there's a little bit of my layout there in the dark, which again, I'm not crazy about, but man, it really does add some life to it. So why am I using the Just Plug system? Mainly because it's easy, and I can get lights plugged in a matter of a few minutes without having to do a lot of wiring, and everything's consistent. I gotta say, when the Woodland Scenics first released the system, I was very skeptical that anyone would pay, the kind of money it took to, get a module, lights on a module, buildings lit up, and lights on the street. And I was very wrong about that. People have really taken to it, and you can talk to just about anybody, and they know what it does if they haven't got it on their layout at least. You don't need to know anything about wiring. You don't need to know any math, resistors, that type of thing. As they call it, it's Just Plug. So if you're not familiar with the system, this is it in a nutshell. If you look on the left there, you can see the basic system is a power supply of some sort to power what's called a light hub. And from the light hub, you plug the LEDs into the hub, and you have dimmers that you can use to dim them individually. And it's expandable. So if you decide you want to add more later, you can add more hubs. and you can add more ports. And you can add even an 18-volt power supply. So you can go with two 9-volt batteries instead of the power supply that plugs in the wall. So it's a very versatile system and allows you to grow to a point. That'll be my caveat here, because at a certain point, I think a lot of people are going to say, I need something more. But it's a great way to get started, and even testing things on the workbench. When I'm putting a roommate's kit together, the system on the left I have right on my workbench, so I can plug something in and make sure that everything's working before it goes on the layout, even if I'm using another system. And there's an example from their catalog of what you can do with it. They have automobiles, they have street lights, they have billboards now that are available. But what they didn't have when I started doing roomettes was a really effective way to light buildings. And this was their solution for structures, which was a window diffusing film that you just put on the inside of the building, and it would take the light from the LED, and diffuse it. You still had to divide the building into rooms or something like that if you wanted to have individual rooms lit up. But really, there was no illusion of depth inside. And to me, it kind of looked like one of these Thomas Kincaid paintings that you've seen at Walmart, where the whole building just seems like there's a fire inside and they need to call the fire department. So this to me was kind of the weak link in Woodland Scenic's system. And I hoped to kind of fix that when I started up roomettes. So here's some examples of some of the kits. That's a DPM city cab company. There's the Pan's Pet Shop. Most kits contain 3 rooms. Some of the smaller buildings are 2. This is a Walther's building that has, I think there's 8 or 10. There's 10 rooms in this building. And what you can't see from these photos, which you could see from video, or if you were looking, with your eye, as you move around the buildings, because the walls are, in different relationships to each other, and the service desk, for example, is in the middle of the room. You get a real 3D effect as you move around them. And some of the kits actually include things like the desks or the wiper blade box in the garage. They're very small and sometimes a little challenging for the first time to fold them up. But if you take your time, I think they really add a lot to the scene. So now I'm going to just jump out of the slideshow for a sec, and I can talk about the kits themselves. Just got to find my my cursor here. And there we go. Okay, you should have me on camera now.
We do.
Okay.
Well, no, I'm sorry. You're mixed with everybody. I don't have full screen of you.
Don't have full screen of me. Okay.
Hey. Okay, we have your computer, but not you, Bear.
That's weird. I've hit stop share, so.
Andy, I can see him full screen. This is Frank.
Am I?
Okay, you can.
Yeah.
You have to pin the video.
Okay.
Okay, well. So is there anyone who can't see me full screen?
I see a full screen.
Okay. Yeah, I can't hear Andy anymore, so.
Sorry.
Oh,
I keep turning my mic off. If you go to the upper right screen, for most of you, there's a little 3 dots, and if you click on that, one of them says pin video, and if you hit that, Barry will be full screen. Go ahead, Barry. I'm out.
So here's a roommate's kit, and what's included in a kit is the rooms. In this case, this is the Dale's Variety, the variety store that we saw. And it has two rooms. It's one of the smaller ones, and includes the LEDs. It also includes a service counter and shelves and signs for inside the store. So here's typically what will come out of the package. This is a printed cardstock that's been laser cut. Now, when I do the prototypes, I have to cut all these out by hand. So I can tell you right now, having them laser cut is a joy, because cut them out by hand I find really tedious. It's one of the parts of the job that I don't like the most. And a laser does a better job of cutting than you and I ever could. I mean, those lines are so straight. So the idea with the kit is to punch the room out, and there's a couple of tabs there on the corners. I'll do this backwards so you can see the pattern. It just comes out of the sheet like that. I use a knife sometimes, but you know, for the sake of speed, I'll just pull them off. And the thing to remember when you're assembling it or taking it out of the fret is that there's some perforated lines. Those ones you don't cut. Those are the lines that are going to allow it to bend like that. And you can already see, and you got it upside down, you can already see a room coming together there, right? And there's tabs. These tabs are going to bend in as well. And they're going to go under the floor and over the roof eventually. And there's a little tab at the front that will bend up, and that is where you glue it to the wall. So for glue, what I use is I recommend a product called GemTack, which I believe you can get at Michael's craft stores. I think these are about $9.99 or something like that for a bottle. And there's a lot more GemTack in that bottle than you'll ever use. But I find this is a great glue for putting details on buildings. I find all kinds of other uses for it as well. So here's your tip, your extra bonus tip. For putting details on, it's very flexible. It's a lot like white glue, but it's very flexible. So sometimes if you knock a detail with a CA, you'll knock it right off because it's a very brittle joint. GemTack isn't like that. It's a little rubbery that way. And it takes a little while longer to dry, but it allows you to work with things. So if you pick some of this up, try using it on some other things. Really useful. Another one is, and it's very similar too, Eileen's, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with Eileen's tacky glue. You can also use that. There's a company called Deluxe. They've just come from the UK and they've released in North America a whole pile of different glues. And one that they do is called Rocket Card Glue. It's good for cardstock. I find it's a little watery though. I don't like to use it because I don't find I can control it as much. So this is not my main fallback glue. I'll just use it if it happens to be sitting there and I grab it. But the GemTack is great. I put a little bit on a piece of plastic or a lid from a sour cream container or something like that as a palette, and then I use a toothpick or even a popsicle stick, wooden stick, to add the glue to the wings. So these wings here, I'll glue those, and then the bottom wing goes under the floor, and the top wing goes over the floor. And I'll put that on my desk, and that's where the popsicle stick comes in. I got a pair of tweezers that I use at the end of the tweezers, and I'll use that to burnish against the bottom of my work surface, my desk, my cutting pad, and just burnish that down so that the glue gets really squishy in there. And it gives you enough working time with the GemTack that you can move things around. But once you start working it like that, it sets up pretty quick, and you don't have to really wait for it to dry. And then you've got a box. So I'll assemble all the boxes for the rooms. Now, when it comes to details, for example, like desks and shelves, they basically work the same way. So on this sheet here, this is Stuart's Hobby Shop. This was actually named after Rod Stewart. City Classics had a sign in one of their kits for Stewart's Hobby Shop. And so I asked Jim at City Classics, can I make an interior using the same name? And he says, yeah, for sure. So you can put a City Classics sign outside that says Stewart's Hobby Shop, and then an interior in it. Actually, here's the Stewart's Hobby Shop, this green one here. There's the sign from City Classics out front, and there's the interior inside. So Stewart's has some details inside. There's a countertop. There's a shelf of looks like some Bowser stuff on the shelf. Green boxes. That's got to be Bowser. And there's also a model railroad that can go in the store. So that folds up into a table, and there's some Lionel trains on the bottom underneath on the shelves. So that's an example of some of the shelves, shelving that go inside the interior. And to me, it's those details that add a lot of 3D to your interior. As soon as you have objects in the front and the back, when your eye passes by them and sees the movement, that's what tricks your eye into thinking that everything is three-dimensional. So you can put figures in there. You can add your own details. For example, there's used to be a company called, I think, Fezziwig's Furniture years ago that they made cast iron details. But there's a sofa. And what I've done with my sofas in a lot of the rooms is I've made them size so that when you put another 3D sofa in front of it, I know you can't see that very well. Try to turn it up here. When you put another sofa in front of it, it blocks the two-dimensional one that's printed there, so you don't see two sofas, right? And most of the time it works pretty well. So you can put someone sitting on that sofa. Another thing I do, just gotta find my other prop here. In the bedrooms I put headboards on the walls. And what you can do is take a block of this stuff, which you're probably using to make hills and things, blue styrofoam, and you can carve yourself a little square of blue styrofoam, just the right size to be a bed, paint it, dapple it, maybe to put a pattern on it like a duvet, and for absolutely nothing, you've added a detail. I've even made little pillows out of this styrofoam to put on the beds to make them look more like a bed. So, and that costs nothing. So there's no reason why you can't add a little bit of 3D detail without spending any money at all if you're a little crafty on some things. So let me just check here. It's been a long time since I put one together. So once you've got your boxes together, what you'd be doing would be to glue them inside of the building, again using the gem tack. But before you do, you're going to add a little light. Now here's an example of the LED that comes with the building. So that's a printed circuit board with an LED and a resistor on it. And I've put a plug on there that will plug into the Woodland Scenics hub. So again, just plugs right in. You can adjust the dimming on it. And when it's in your building, you can check it to make sure that it's working before you put it in. Now I'm just going to go to my slideshow again. I'm going to show you a few things for interiors. Okay. So here I've used some gem tack to put the windows in a DPM that looks like one of their apartment buildings. And what I've done even is I've actually used a blob of gem tack on top of the glass just to make a little dot there to hold that glass against the wall. Because one thing I hate is window glass that pops out. A couple years after you build a building, you look and the windows are gone. But one thing that's really cool about the roomettes is that when they go in the building and you glue them in, they also pinch the glass against the wall. And so once you've got a roomette in the building, there's like virtually no chance that that glass is going to pop out because the roomette is holding it in place. That's just one thing that I just found out, after putting them in, and it just turned out to be a benefit. So how do you mount the LED into the top of the roomette? Well, there's a lot of things you can do. I like to use a good quality tape, and I also use hot glue, depending what's handy. This red tape is something called tuck tape. I don't know what they call it in the US, but in Canada it's called tuck tape, and it's what they use when they're building houses to tape the Tyvek, the seams in the Tyvek. So it's really designed to stick forever, a long time. And once it's been on there for 3 days, if it's on your desk for 3 days, you're going to have to use like Goo Gone to get the residue off. That's how sticky this stuff is. After it's cured for 3 days, it's sticky. And then, I'll use a little bit of hot glue on the edges just to hold the LED in place so it doesn't bend up or pop out. And that's good to go. That's not going anywhere. And once it's in your building, you don't want to have to go back and readjust it or anything like that. That's the other thing I forgot to mention about details. If you're putting in details in your roomettes, you also want to make sure that those are really well glued down, because while it is possible to cut open a roomette in a building and reposition something, reglue it, it's going to make you sad. You're going to be swearing a lot. I actually had to cut ceilings out and go in with tweezers and reglue something, and I find that it's not fun. That's why when I put a detail in, I'll often put a fillet of glue behind the detail just to add a little more strength to it so that it's not ever going to pop out and roll around in there. But it can happen. So here's a finished, this is these are 3 DPM apartments that have been, the flats. DPM makes this set of 3 flats. So this is the 3 flats with roomettes in them. And again, you can see I've used the tuck tape just to hold everything together, band it all together so that it all comes out as one set of wires down the hole. Now I've even taken the light hubs apart and out of their case and fastened them to the inside of the building so that all of the electronics are right inside the building. And this is something you might do if you had a diorama and you didn't have a lot of space underneath to put, all the electronics. You can run one set of wires up into the building, dim it from behind, and then everything's kind of compact all inside the building. But again, application, how you want to use it, how it works best for you. You just stop slideshow again for a second. And you should see me again. So yeah, speaking of dioramas, if you're going to an NMRA show and a meet and you're entering a contest and you've got some lights in your building and when the judges come around, you want it to light up. Well, if you're using, the wall wart, that's not very handy in a contest room because you've got to be right beside the wall outlet. And sometimes you're in the middle of the room and that's not possible. So our friends at Woodland Scenics make a 18 volt, there's 2 9-volt batteries in there, and that will plug right into your hub and you can power your hub from that. And if you really want to wow the judges, they also make an on-off switch. So that just plugs into the hub, and when the judges come by, they can read on the front, push the button to make it light up, and it doesn't have to sit there running on batteries all day. They can just have it light up, when they want to use it. So that's the battery kit. Let's talk a bit about other alternatives besides the Woodland Scenic system. The folks over at NCE, who make the DCC power cab, they make something called the Illuminator. And what that is, that board basically has 3 outputs, the same as the Woodland Scenics LEDs, the same as my LEDs that plug in right there. And it's a decoder. that's basically a decoder. So you can tap into your track power, your track bus for your DCC to power it, and then you can run 3 different outputs to either Woodland Scenic system or one of my Rimettes. And you adjust the dimming by using CVs, right? And it has some effects on there, so you can do some effects as well, like flickering lights, that type of thing, a TV flicker. My problem with this, and I've encouraged them to do something more elaborate, you're going to run out of outputs very quickly with only 3 outputs. I mean, the hub from Woodland Scenics has 4. And I encouraged them to make and I would help them promote one that had 36 outputs, right? Because if this is a decoder, you can connect this to JMRI, and you can have 36 outputs. You can have input 1 come on at 6 p.m. and go off at 8. Input 2 can come on at 10 p.m. and go off at 2 a.m. You can put it on a fast clock, right? And that can be a 1-to-1 fast clock. It could be compressed into any speed you want using JMRI, using software that anyone who does software could make for us. And you could have a TV on one output. The TV can come on and go off. All kinds of cool things. They had told me they were working on that, and then last fall I heard that they couldn't get some of the parts to do it, and I never heard back from them. So in the meantime, a company called Model Train Technology has come up with one with 16 outputs. And it's basically, again, a decoder. It's got 100 different effects on it. I don't even know, like, after the first dozen effects, what else can you do with it? I don't even know. I haven't even had a chance to play with that yet. But this, again, is a decoder, but it also comes in a version for a little more money that has a keypad. And so you can program this the way you would the decoder, or you can use the keypad to program it, and you don't even need DCC. That's from Model Train Technology. You'll recognize that by the little guy there. That's the Model Train Technology guy. And they're out of Florida, and I think these are, I'm going to say they're 100, if I recall correctly, 120. But again, it's got 16 outputs, and it's got effects. So, if you're starting to add up how many of these it would take to do that, this is pretty good value. The other thing you can do with it, this is also compatible with Woodland Scenics because they're all using the same plugs. So Woodland Scenics has their port sharing device, which allows you to take one port out of this and split it into 4, right? So basically you can take the 4 outputs of this and end up with 16 using port sharing devices. If you put port sharing devices on this, you can go 16 times 4. So you got 64 outputs. Now the 4 of them will all do the same thing. If you dim them, they'll all dim the same amount all on the port sharing device. And he's done it with 64 of my LEDs and hadn't overload it. So this will actually run up to 64, no problem. Yeah, the issue with having all four LEDs on the port sharing device all dim the same amount because they're all on the same port. All you do is you put one LED over here and one LED on that building over there, and then you get a dynamic, between LEDs as opposed to putting them all in one building and they're all dimming the same amount. So if you want one room dimmer, one room brighter, all you do is spread them out amongst different buildings. You can do it randomly or plan it that way, but that's the way to get around that idea that they're all going to dim the same amount. Just put them in different places. Things you can do. I was also talking about what you could do with an interior by adding 3D objects like people and furniture and that type of thing. Another cool thing to do, add some curtains or window shades, Venetian blinds. These are from City Classics. And they also give you another level of 3D. in the window glass, right? So when people are looking in, they see 3D objects inside, they see the wall behind, and there's also curtains or shades in the window. So you're pushing that 3D effect even further. Now, while I'm here, I'll give a little plug to City Classics. And here's a product that you could probably use with, if you're using roomettes, you can use with the roomettes. I find that the roomettes work best when they're 2 feet back, maybe 30 inches, right up to your nose. They're most effective because that's where you get most of the 3D effect. When you move around, you can see objects. As objects or buildings get further back, you don't get as much of a 3D effect because you're just not moving as far in distance as your head moves around them. City Classics makes something called picture windows. And what these are is a clear, like an acetate type material that have interiors printed on the clear material. So you can put those inside a building, put an LED behind them, and it kind of gives you the illusion of an instant interior. The reason I find they don't work as well up front is because the perspective is constant. It doesn't change, unlike the roomettes, which have three walls and a floor. So again, they work better at the back where that isn't as important. But quick way to put some interiors and some buildings that are further back in the side streets. Picture windows. He's got a record store and a grocery store. This one's a laundromat. Very cool. So yeah, that's our plug for City Classics. I want to go back to dioramas again. When I go to a show, I find that the lighting is always changing every show I go to. And what I found was at the beginning of the show, I would adjust all the LEDs for the room lighting, the night before, and go back to the hotel, come back the next morning, and the train show, they've turned all the lights on. I didn't know they had another set of lights. Like Amherst and Springfield, they've got a set of lights on Friday night for setting up, and they got another set that comes on Saturday, and it's like twice as bright. So I had to go around and readjust all my LED brightnesses. And what I was doing was I had them on a turntable, so they would rotate at the show, so you could see all around. And I put all the guts in the box. Well, and then I had to take the top off the box and adjust all the LEDs. And then when I put them inside my shadow box, now it's darker in there than it is out on the table. So I had to adjust them again. It just got to be so frustrating and too much work. So what I did was, where's my hub? I got these boxes off Amazon. You probably get them at a craft store or Michael's. They're like a 3.5 by 3.5 inch box, right? I think 5 of them cost me $20 delivered to my door, so that's a good deal. So I put a little compartment in there to keep my battery on one side. There's my battery, right? And I put a switch on the outside of the box, so now I can shut the power off to my diorama without going inside the box. And so now what do I do about being able to adjust all those little pots on there when I want to adjust the brightness on the lights in the building? Well, I drill holes in the box. And my hub goes in the box, and I line up the pots. And now I can adjust those pots from outside without having to open up the box at all. And now my life is better. Now I don't swear so much. But there's all kinds of room inside the box left over for all the wires to go in, right? I can even get one of those port sharing devices. There's enough room to get a port sharing device in there with them. And everything's all tied up. And really the only time I have to go in there is when I change the batteries. And these batteries I've had since Amherst, and for the amount of time I use them, I get maybe like 7 days of show out of them, 7 8-hour days. So unless you're worried about the batteries leaking, you can put batteries in there like once a year and you're good to go, right? So I think that's about all I have as far as tips. Let me just go back to my slideshow for a couple more things. I'm actually starting to get good at this. There it is. So here's a couple things I'm working on. I got right now, I think I got about 20 kits in HO. I've got 3 kits in N-scale. I have one I started developing for O, but I'm pulling back a little bit on O thanks to COVID and the whole setback that we've had with that. And I'm going to go back into working on HO ones. Here's a couple I'm working on right now. These are for, let's see, Atlas makes a couple of really nice residential houses. Fantastic kits that almost put themselves together. I really got to give Atlas kudos for that. This one is for the City Classics Railroad Street Company House, which if you're modeling Appalachian coal, you probably have 3 of these side by side. Actually, he makes a kit of 3 of them. So far, I'm only doing 1 interior for them, but since I have these as a template, I can probably do a couple others later, and then each house can look different. And I'm also doing one for a Walther's bungalow, which is a really, really nice kit. So what is that? That's 4 residential kits coming, probably July or August. And then I'll be doing working into Merchants Row from Walther's Merchants Row kits. I think they have 4 Merchants Row in the series, and I'll be doing more DPMs. I hope to have all the DPM buildings done by this time next year. So there'll be interior for just about every DPM building. Just a little plug. This is something I offer on my website for those days when you're just like, I would just like something to do. I don't have enough stuff in my basement on a shelf that I could work on that's been down there for 20 years. I make them available as a complete kit. So you get the roomette, you get the building that it goes in, and enough electronics to power it, and a little tube of gem tack as a sample just to try it out and see how you like it. Just to let you know, I run a Facebook group called Model Railroad Interiors and Lighting. And although my stuff shows up there, anyone can post, and there's a lot of creativity, a lot of people doing different things, a lot of people doing very complex things, and a lot of people doing very simple things. But here's an example of the kind of stuff that we have on the Facebook page. So if you're doing anything lighting related, feel free to contribute, or just go there and get some inspiration from some people that have been doing this kind of thing. And that's the end of the slideshow. And I'll see if I can get my...
Barry, would this be a good time to ask a question, or?
This would be a great time to ask a question as I'm fumbling around getting things, the slideshow put away. Okay. Yes.
When you have, let's say, an office building, I can see where the roomettes would work, looking straight on, but you also got a lot of side windows. Is that like where you might stick, was it window dressings for the sides?
Well, because they're made for the kit specifically, right? And first of all, people ask me, can I use these on this kit or that kit? Can you send me measurements? It's like, well, I can't even advocate, like suggest that people put them on other buildings they weren't intended for, because the first thing they're going to say is, well, you said I could use this, and the windows on the side don't match up with the windows in my building, right? It's impossible for me to make a generic one. I just wanted to put that out there because that's a question a lot of people have. So, but because they're specific, what I do is, this is not a great example because this is a little odd. Oh, here's great. Here's one. This is the motorcycle shop. You'll see, yes, it's a solid wall on the back, but you see the sides, they have cutouts. Those will line up with the windows on that DPM building, Schultz's Garage. They will line up perfectly, and they have, there's a door frame, there's a window frame around the window. And so assuming you've put the building together correctly, those should line up perfectly. And when you look through those windows, you will see the wall on the other side. And again, that gives you that 3D illusion, right? Does that answer your question at all?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Those are, I mean, when I started out, those were tricky to do because I'm always worried about like, well, what if someone puts the building together wrong and I'm a millimeter out? So far that I haven't had any complaints about it. One of the most challenging ones I did, and I did it just as a challenge, the brewery kit for DPM model. It's the only one I have made that has 4 complete sides, a ceiling, and a floor. It's a completely sealed box. And for me, it was a horror at the beginning. What if someone builds a building and those windows don't line up? But they do. So kudos to Bob Lundy, who designed those DPM kits many years ago. I gotta say, I'm always going to say something nice about Bob Lundy because without these kits, half of our towns would be empty, and he's done a great job of making buildings that are just about in any town. But again, the fact that you can put that in a building that's 20 years old and it still lines up is a tribute to his good work.
More questions?
Barry, this is Chuck. I have a question for you on the lighting. Do you have any issues with light leakage from coming, like where the perforations are, and things like that?
What I suggest you do is run a bead of that gem tack into the perforation, and that basically seals it, and that's enough usually. Rarely do you have any, because the light is on the ceiling. Rarely is it spilling out those holes. But if you're ever concerned about that, I've even taken a Sharpie sometimes and just blacked the outside of the box, like on the back wall. But the cardstock is thick enough that the light doesn't leak actually through the cardstock, maybe through those perforations, but only if you're looking at it back the other side, you might catch some, and that glue will usually take care of that. Not a big deal, surprisingly.
Thank you.
The other thing that's cool about those perforations is, unlike when I cut them, when I have to cut them manually to test them, I do a score and score the cardboard. The laser actually kind of cauterizes the paper when it cuts it. It burns it, right? And you can actually kind of hear this crusty snap when you bend it together, which is fascinating to me, that not only does it do such a clean line, but it also makes a really clean cut. And it's almost like self-healing when it cuts it. Lasers are great. My laser cutter is actually Tim Morris from Fast Tracks. He sets them up and sells me time on his laser, and I have to give Tim kudos for being able to tell a laser. A laser's blind, right? Laser can't tell where that image is on the sheet, right? So if you just said, put that in there and said, cut it, it's going to cut it like, an eighth of an inch off registration, right? And Tim found a way, rather than telling the laser where to cut, the laser tells us where it wants to cut, and then we put the paper in the right spot. And that's Tim Morris is brilliant. There would be no Romettes if it weren't for Tim Morris's Fast Tracks. One, because he's brilliant that way and he figured out how to do it. But two, I don't want to own a laser. They do amazing work, but man, you got to have a blower and compressed air and exhaust it out, and then your house smells like charcoal. And no, you don't want to own one of those big ones if you don't have to. That's for sure.
Barry, I have a quick question, if I can.
Yeah.
This is Chris from Green Mountain Division in Vermont. The illuminator and the model railroad interior lighting, do they and the Woodland Scenics all use the same plug?
They're all using the same plug. Okay. So Woodland Scenics came first, and then they came along and said, oh, this is a good system, and people are using it, but we can make it better. Right, and I think that NCE started to when they came up with the illuminator, but I really think that I don't think they saw the big picture when they developed it about about how much you could do with it, and I think that well-trained technology does. And I've had conversations with him, and it wouldn't surprise me if he comes out with one that's got 3 times as many outputs at some point. I think it just depends on how successful this is, right?
Thank you.
Sure.
Barry, this is Steve Cotton, and I had to drop out for a little bit, so I apologize if you covered this while I wasn't on, but the examples you showed all indicate that with the LED lights are in the ceiling of your roomettes, like you have central lighting from the ceiling. Have you ever done anything like with floor lamps or table lamps in your room for lighting?
No, but I bet you could.
Yeah.
I bet you could. Yeah. I mean, the thing for me is to keep it as simple as possible, because not everybody is going to go to that level. So, putting it in the ceiling is the easiest way to do it. And there's lots of things you can do with that lighting. I mean, you can color it, right? I mean, you can build baffles in there to have it directed in one spot if you wanted more of a spotlight. So there's lots of things you can do to play with it. But yeah, there are lamps on the wall in the residential interiors. And if you wanted to poke a little hole under that lamp and, just experiment with how big a hole and put an LED behind it. Woolen Scenic sells their LEDs, so there's there's ones that will plug into the same system with it, and yeah, play with it and see what it does, right? I mean, you could get tricky. You could get tricky and build your own lampshade. Have it, out of cardstock, have it come out from the wall, put an LED in there, and then the light is directed downward, right? But that's fussy, and I'd like to see it if you try something like that. I'd like to see what it can do.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Any more questions? Somebody? Pete, go ahead. Can you unmute yourself there, Pete?
I are unmuted. Nicely done, Barry. You have talked about a whole lot of interesting things. Your apartment houses, for instance, with all those extra LEDs that you're going to go put in there. Don't forget that the guy in 24B has to get up at 2, 4, and 6 in the morning to go hit the head. Yeah. Old guys. There are a lot of different things you can do. As far as your question that just came up on lamp lighting, interior lamps, sofa lamps, or whatever. I've forgotten what they're called, but these things are nano LEDs or pico LEDs. You can get them from places like Evan Design. I think they're in Colorado, or Microluminas in Pennsylvania. These things are the size of a sesame seed, and they will throw enough light to light a locomotive headlight. I'm absolutely amazed at the amount of lumens that come out of those little guys. And they have all sorts of interesting possibilities because you can get them. They come attached to their resistors, so all you have to do is hide the resistor someplace and then work the lamp cord up to where you want it.
And that's why it's important to be able to dim them. Because a lot of the lighting I've seen in buildings is just way too bright. And when it comes to interior lighting, more is less. The more you can restrain yourself and have dynamics between lighting. So some rooms are lighter and some rooms are dimmer. Those are the things that add realism, but you got to pull back and say, enough, don't overdo it. Yeah. Less is more.
More questions? Comments? There's also a company, and I forget where he's from, Engineering, and he sells a whole bunch of different kinds of LEDs and magnet wire, and I've used some of those, and Pete's right, you can find a lot of those nanos at his place, so you can do a lot of tricky things, but that's another whole,
He does
topic.
Sound modules too, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
Yeah, so you know what? Get yourself a sample of some crickets and add it to your lighting. And again, sound pushes the illusion of visuals as well, right? So
yeah.
Well, you could take that whole thing and put it all together right downtown, and suddenly in the middle of the night, the lights come on the second deck, and then the lights come on the apparatus floor. The doors start going up, engine 4, ladder 2, out they go, and they're the Fleischmann system that goes down the roadway with all those, lights and sirens going. There are a lot of interesting things you can do, and no, I don't have the time to do it.
Well, I mean, that was my hope, was to kind of make it easier to get to that point. Like, you quickly get an interior in, and then you got time to add all those other things, like the details inside, right? And push it further. So I think most of the kits take about maybe half an hour once you get used to putting them together. Between the time you open it up and start folding to the time you get it in the building, maybe 45 minutes for a building. But you could do, a whole block of the street easily in like one day.
Barry, where do we find the roomettes?
I have a website.
I'm listening.
Which is roometslighting.com. It's hard to find them in a shop. Des Plaines has a few in Chicago area, but there are not a lot on hobby shop shelves. I remember when there used to be hobby shops. But I do free shipping on orders over $50. So really, it's, one thing a lot of us have discovered in the last 3 months is it's nice when something just shows up at your door and you don't have to go anywhere to pick it up. So.
Excellent. Barry, thanks.
Oh, Barry, you've got a thing on your website here. A nice photograph shows a cop standing there looking at the chief's car. That's the only thing left in the station. So you got to kind of wonder who got launched and who didn't. But if I can make one minor suggestion.
Yep.
I heard that this clinic was roomettes. And there's probably that 10% that don't get the word. And what are roomettes? How to assemble them? What are the upcoming products? That's a great text. But I thought you were talking about the interior of a sleeping car.
Right.
So there's got to be a way to say something about buildings in there. Fix your buildings.
Well, think of it this way: what's a cigar and what's a cigarette? A cigarette is a smaller version of a cigar. So what's a roomette?
Right.
You got some nice stuff going here, my friend.
Great kits, Barry. I love them.
Barry,
well, no, they're not for everybody. What I think they do best is for those of us, and I'm not one of them, who've actually finished a layout, 5 or 10 years ago, and are looking for something to do to just, add a little touch to it. I'm in the track laying stage, so I'm a long ways from having a roomettes in my buildings, but looking forward to it.
Barry, thanks for doing this for us. It was a great presentation, and I really appreciate you coming and do this.
Well, thank you. I hope I wasn't all over the map. I've got stuff all over my desk here, and I never know which way to go next.
Oh, I thought it went pretty smooth. So,
yeah.
You didn't confuse me, and I get confused easy. And Fred, if you're still here, thank you very much for your presentation as well.
You're quite welcome.
Just so everybody knows, as a request from me, Pete did come to say hello, and thank you, Pete, for coming. Do you have anything you want to say to the division that's here?
Just thanks for a very nice, very interesting evening, and may you not get the hot, steamy stuff that's outdoors right now that's headed your direction from me.
Well, actually, we're probably getting the rain.
You guys have done a good job at separating out the issues related to the dotted line. And I think that you're going to benefit from that. And I like what Andy and company have done in terms of putting together the bones of a new division. So keep going, keep at it, and hang in there because you're doing well.
Thanks, Pete. We appreciate that. So for everybody, we've put together a website for ourselves, and so you may want to write this down. It's www.WNY-NMRA.com, and you can go there now, and we've got some stuff up. But what more importantly is we're going to have this presentation posted up there as well. So if you want to go back and review this, or if you want to see something, you couldn't remember exactly what Fred said or what Barry was talking about, you'll be able to review this, and we'll leave it up there for a little while. We've got enough server space that we can do this in. So, it's www. It's WNY Division NMRA.com. So that's our official new home as well for you guys. So, hey, Bill Brown, did you have anything that you wanted to say to us?
I never have anything to say. You know that.
I know, but I appreciate you showing a Ned, wherever Ned went. Ned was here, but
I know we talked about getting involved with you guys and promoting some AP stuff. We had planned to have this meeting live where I would come out there, and unfortunately, for obvious reasons, it didn't take place. We will do that in the future once things loosen up. I'd love to come out there and see what some of you guys are doing and talk some AP and get some stimulus going. It's been a tough sledding. You would think that the last 3 months with everybody indoors that there would have been a lot of submittals coming in for the achievement program. But it actually hasn't happened that way because a lot of people have not figured out how to do the judging when they can't, show up and really look at the models. There was a proposal Frank Koch and I talked about in detail about, and we actually did some test runs about judging models virtually with some of the computer software that's out there. And we found out, with the exception of scenery, it just is not a reliable way to really judge a model. You just can't get a close enough picture like you can in person. So I would say to your folks out there that are really interested in getting some things judged, I've heard of a lot of people across the country that are doing some creative things in order to judge during this pandemic. As an example, somebody might have 2 or 3 structures that they want judged. They'll set up a table in their garage, and they'll set the 3 structures there, leave the garage door open, and a judge will come and work for about a half hour in the garage on his own, not touching anything, do the paperwork at home, and then a second judge comes in a half hour later and judges things. The 2 communicate by phone or Skype or Zoom. They do the paperwork, and then the submittal is done that way. So it's really a clean way to do it in this kind of environment. And there's other creative ways that are being done out there too. So hopefully things will loosen up here pretty soon, and we'll all be able to get back to normal.
We do want you to come out because we can use your guidance, and we appreciate you offering that to us, because our AP chair couldn't make it tonight, anniversary. So I said, you got to do what you got to do and keep mom happy. So he couldn't make it tonight, but I know he's anxious to get started and and we feel that the AP program is an integral part of being a member of the NMRA. So we want to make sure that we have a good, solid program for that.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Andy.
Go ahead, Pete.
A couple of things with respect to what Bill just said. A, I agree with most of it. B, judging is for contests, and that's a whole separate issue. What we're doing now is evaluation. That's what we're talking about, is evaluation. So that's done with evaluators, not judges. Same process, essentially. There is some difference between a contest and the AP evaluation requirement, particularly with things like motive power, for instance. There are some differences in the way the 2 are set up. I'm trying hard to get those aligned so that everybody's on the same page, and I'm having some success, but there it is. With respect to long-distance evaluation, and if you think about this really affects everybody. I'm sitting in Traverse City, Michigan. I'm 200 miles northwest of Detroit, 250 miles northwest of Detroit. I'm 300 miles northwest of Toledo. Suddenly distance is in the way and geography is not your friend. What about the guys in the Eastern Canada division that are 1,000 miles away from anybody who can do them any good because they're in Newfoundland and Labrador? Or what about the guys in Wyoming? You can see where this is going. So yes, we are looking for ways to make this work. And I sat in on one that worked out very nicely. We did 3 MMRs, did an evaluation of Bill will love this, Colorado building down in Florida. And the modeler agreed not to change anything. It was pretty obvious right off the bat from all of us. Fred Heaton was one. He was out in Winnipeg. I was one of the other ones. And then we had Bob Ham and Jim Gore, who were both in Florida at the time, looking at one of Carl Smay's Colorado tram houses or something. I don't know. That's all that Colorado stuff that Bill understands and I don't. I'm just a simple, common New England peasant. Anyway, what comes out of this whole process, and what they did was to evaluate it online, and we all got an idea where this thing ought to be, right about here on the matrices. And then Carl took it to the division, the region convention, I guess it was down there. It was a week later, and he agreed that he wasn't going to change anything. He took it as is, and Gore and Ham looked at it up close and personal. The thing actually came out 6 points higher than what we had sort of written down and held close to the chest when we compared notes afterwards. So that part worked. And what they found is that stuff that is over about 100 points is pretty obvious. Stuff that is under 50 points is pretty obvious. And under 50, yeah, look, can you maybe look at this and maybe you should think about doing that, and there might be a better approach to this, and you've got glue joints all over this other and so on. Those sorts of things you can help out and then bring it back and we'll have another look. The problem comes between the 50 and the 100 points because you need to hit 80, basically 87 and a half, or for practical purposes, 88, in order to score a merit award. And there are just enough little minor issues related to cameras, quality of lighting, depth of field, color renditions, and a whole bunch of other things that are all electronic stuff that is beyond my pay grade, that we haven't figured out how to standardize that yet. So once we get that standardized and the equipment standardized, you need to have this, this, and this, for instance. And then we need to have the evaluators standardized. Then we can begin to work a serious long-distance evaluation. And that will help out in all kinds of different ways, pandemic or not. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm feeling very positive about it, although it's moving far more slowly than I would like to have it move. In other news, though, structures, motive power, and cars or equipment are the three that you really cannot do long distance right now. The other stuff, things like scenery, civil and electrical engineering, yes, you can begin to get those taken care of, do long distance, because I can tell when you're running the locomotive through the track that it's going through and I can't hear it. It's going through and it's going whackety bonk and it goes over the side. No, that's not going to work. Check your gauge. I can see those sorts of things and they're obvious. So yeah, we've got some possibilities that are available to us right now, and that's cool. But we're working on the stuff that requires glue, I guess is a good way to phrase that. Any of you guys have got really good ideas, Andy knows how to get in touch with me, and I'm in the magazine and so on. So we want to hear them and go from there. The idea is to get as much of this stuff available as objectively as possible out there for everybody to be able to benefit from. And for those of you who are not familiar with the AP and have heard the old thing about, oh, AP is all about this paperwork stuff, and I just hate it. Back off. All the paperwork does is tell the evaluator, me, or the judge, Bill, what you tried to do, so that we can then go to the matrix that's available on the website that anybody can get access to try to figure out where you hit on that matrix. In other words, how well did you do it? The matrix is scored for what did you try to do in terms of complexity, and what did you try to do in terms of how well you did it. And they're scored from meh to OMG and from meh to holy wah. And the idea is to get down into the OMG holy wah area with what you're doing. If you go through and look, 70% is a good grade to go through. And when Bob Ham was the national contest chair, he actually would color in with a Sharpie marker the matrices that went to each judging team. He would color in the 70% line. So if there are 40 points, for instance, available for construction, then 70% of that is 28 points. Every little 28 had was highlighted. And if you were down below that, then that was good. If you were above that, okay, well, that's where you scored. Add it all up and it comes out to a total and they go from there. Again, the idea is to make it as objective as possible with those of us who are doing the evaluating. Now, the other thing is that whole AP is not out there so that you can get gold stars to collect and stick on your forehead and take home to mommy and so on. Who cares? What the AP does is force you out of your comfort zone. Can you really build a locomotive from scratch? Is that possible? The answer is yeah, and it's not as hard as you think. And the only reason I know that is because I went through all that and I actually did it and it worked out really well. Now, I also note that I put a decoder in it that's probably a little bit small, and somebody, let's just put it this way, I had a turnout that failed on me and it was a short, and bad things happen, but I've got that fixed. I know how to make the fix. So that locomotive will be back in service as soon as the parts arrive. But what it does is stretch you, it challenges you, and it's a whole lot of fun. Sorry. Chuck is glazing over, so I guess I gotta shut up. And Bill
Andy,
is telling me to shut up.
Yeah, shut up. Andy, I want to make one more thing that doesn't have anything to do with the AP. I thought of this during Barry's fantastic presentation, and I didn't want to, but I will mention it now. First of all, Barry, I want to congratulate you. You know, those of us that have been in the hobby for 55 years, it's rare that you see somebody come along with something that's new. And you came along with something that was new, that is very, very good. And so congratulations for that. I did want to mention that as you were talking about, powering the lights and everything, that there's some of the people that are on this call right now, I know Andy and some of the others have operated on my home layout. And I use the RR Circuits tower controller, which has 64 outputs that are all programmable through JMRI. The drawback is that it doesn't have the plugs, that compatible with the other systems. It's all hardwiring. But I've managed with it, and we have a day-night sequence when we operate where all the lights, thousands of them on the layout, go on and off in all the rooms during the night. I know Andy's operated on it, and it's a pretty cool setup. But RR Circuits tower controller is what I've used, and it was before. We've had it in place about 8 or 9 years now, so it was well before any of these other things came out. So I'm not going to say it's the best thing out there, but it's effective for my layout.
Yeah, there's another tool that I don't mention in the instructions. It's called cutters. Just cut that off.
There you go.
And again, you can buy these, on eBay and Pololo, I think it is pololo.com. You can buy these plugs, male and female. So, I mean, if anyone ever wanted to convert their system to something that they could quickly and easily unplug, they're out there and they're not that expensive as plugs. So they can be adapted. Well, the other thing is, by the way, here's another tip. If you're using these things, there's a little barb on each plug. There's 2 barbs that keep it from coming out, right? These things are meant for like automotive and aircraft use. That barb is not necessary. And I find sometimes I'm tugging and wiggling and trying to get it out. Cut those barbs off. Don't need them. And the plug will come out just so nice and easy, but it'll never fall out. So you can save yourself a lot of tugging if you just cut the barbs off the plug. Thanks for reminding me of that.
Perfect. Well, thank you. Thank you all. Chuck, do you want to say anything from Garden State? Say hey.
Well, no, I just appreciate the opportunity to be here. And, I like the fact that, we're doing these virtual meets, a lot of divisions are, and it's an opportunity to really share even easier across divisions. I mean, Fred's from the Garden State division, so it's great that he's able to present, and it's just nice, and it opens up a whole new environment of sharing different clinics across all the divisions, across regions and things like that. So it's just kind of a cool, benefit, if you can think of a benefit of being in this pandemic, but that's kind of a benefit to us, is that we can now share our clinics all across all of our divisions and regions. So I appreciate being here, and it's been a lot of fun, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you. And you're absolutely right. And that was one of the reasons I did it. Bradley White, he's the superintendent from Division 12 down in Erie, Pennsylvania.
Hey, Andy, I'd like to congratulate your efforts. I told you it wasn't going to be that scary to be superintendent. I'm really excited to see what you guys have done in a short time. We went through this 3 years ago. You definitely outnumber us in attendees already. That's pretty impressive. And I'm going to do a shameless plug here that just to remind everybody that next May, the Mid-Central Region Convention will be in Erie, Pennsylvania. And we have confirmed that WebTech will be our big tour, more than likely Friday morning. So we should hopefully have the registration. We're hoping to have all that ready and available sometime in the fall.
Okay, and just so you know, we do have a few guys, and I'll get some counts for you, that want to come down and help you guys do a little volunteer work, so you can man some tables for you, maybe.
Well, that's we're definitely going to need help. We may have 40 members, but we're spread over a very large geographic area, and we are partnering Division 11. Which is down along the I-80 corridor. They have stepped up, but definitely we're all hands on deck. We'll take whatever help that we can get.
Perfect.
And keep records of who shows up where, when, because that's all part of AP volunteer certificate.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
And Chris, you're from the Green Mountain Division. Did you have any comments that you wanted to say to us, or I'm glad you came?
I'm happy to be here. I'm really glad I got invited. I wanted to see a Zoom meeting that actually worked. I haven't seen one yet, and this was the first. And I have some people who are itchy to try and take advantage of the COVID-19 situation, because we can't reach some of the people in the bottom of the state. But now we can, if we do it virtually. And so we're doing that. And just as an aside, I work at Tony's Train Exchange here in Vermont, and there are a lot of people who are holed up in their homes, hunkering down. Well, I was laid off and then 2 days later brought back because we had close to 16,000 orders. So dear God in heaven, it ain't dead yet. Thanks for inviting me.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming. Ed, did you want to say, Ed O'Connell, you want to say anything from the Lake Shores group? Turn your mic back on. Let me see if I can get Ed.
There we go.
There you go.
All right. Yeah, it was great to be here. It was a great presentation. As a former New Jersey person, it's great to see Chuck and Frank, even though I wasn't in the NMRA when I was in New Jersey. It was good to see those guys again. The other guys that are here, a couple of familiar faces, some names that I've seen, but I've never actually met you yet, and I hope to. Chris, good to see you here. You're the guy I talked to earlier on the phone, and I think this is good. I'm still trying to work out a couple of the logistics with the how this thing works. I got the laptop actually as a laptop, sitting in my easy chair. I'm trying to play through my big screen TV in front of me, but the sound is coming through some pretty nasty speakers out of the laptop. It keeps cutting out from time to time. I wish I could play it through the TV and figure it out. But I'm really hoping that this thing gets over fast because I'm just about fed up with all of the hoopla. I want to get back together, get over on that, get to the picnic, and it's gonna have to be the socially distancing, stuff. But I'm just really looking forward to just get back into railroading, getting around, doing some op sessions, and hanging around with stuff. We're kicking around. Probably our big event is going to be with out in the Batavia train show with Mike Pysak and the RPM group. We're trying to make a weekend of it. We want to try and get in some op sessions, kind of piggyback onto the ops till you drop thing that Bill has, or name escapes me, Doug, at doing Oktoberfest. We kind of kicked around the term op around the clock. So it's probably going to be small this year, but we're hoping to pick something up. Hopefully this will be over enough that we can do that come November. But I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in person at some point rather than just a picture on my video screen.
Thanks, Ed. I didn't want you to steal all Mike's thunder. Mike, you want to talk about the RPM for a second?
Well, it's still being planned. I will say that since our show is being held on the campus of a State University of New York campus, that we're going to have to, kind of follow their lead. As of now, we don't expect a firm decision about any fall events until September. So I am in contact with them, but it's a fluid situation. We kind of have to roll with the punches here, and we're going to do the best we can. We're planning to move forward, and we're hoping we're going to get good news later, in the summer. But until the fall semester really rolls around, we're going to have to wait. But right now, the show's being planned, and we're hoping for the best. So let's keep our fingers crossed and keep our social distancing in place and get this thing over with. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So, did I miss anybody? I got all my guys are here, and thank you guys for coming. The division guys, Western New York guys, thank you. But if anybody wants to say anything to anybody, Pete or
yeah, I'll throw one comment in if I may, and that is with respect to these Zoom meetings. My local operating group is the Little Finger Train Group, and we're spread out over a 50-mile radius or so, 60-mile radius up here. We started doing these Zoom meetings because we've got a techie on board about 3 months ago, and they have been enormously effective in keeping us feeling together, particularly with anybody who lives alone. Suddenly we are no longer isolated, we are still part of the group. And yes, we talk trains, and yes, we talk a lot of other junk, but it's been beneficial for everybody. I highly recommend it. Zoom does have a program that will allow you to go more than 40 minutes, costs you $15 a month or something to go get into it, but that's something that people can chip into or not chip into, and you can have as many as 100 and some odd folks involved, and it's worth taking a look at. But I would suggest that you add a password to your meeting.
Okay.
That way riffraff like me can't just say, oh, there's a cool meeting to go to, and show up. And yes, I did get a formal invitation.
Oh, we can do that. Actually, I turned it off because I thought it would be confusing.
You keep playing with it.
So,
Andy, if I can comment, generally that the password actually gets embedded right into the invite.
Oh, okay.
In fact, we've been using Zoom for all our board of director meetings, and we just did a division meeting that way. And you can set it up with the password, and it embeds it right in the invitation. The key is don't let everybody share the invitation. We won't post it on social media or anything like that. It's just to the members, NMRA members. That's the only one that we get it.
Right.
Can I interject here?
Sure.
I think that doing the password thing, if you get the link, you got the link, you're good. You don't need a password.
Yeah, options. Chuck and I have talked about, they use FCC over there instead of Zoom. Right now, I teach at the University of Buffalo, so I'm using my Zoom through the university, so it's working fine, and I can have as many people for as long as I want. However, if I stop teaching, if that happens, we're going to need either a backup, either paying for it, as Pete mentioned, or Chuck and I have talked about using FCC, and there's a lot more flexibility, right, Chuck?
Yeah, I mean, you can have multiple people as hosts. You can mute everybody's lines as long as you're a host, and you can set up a Q&A session after the presentation. So it's a little bit different, but it's freeconferencecall.com. And it just works pretty well. And I think I sent you some documentation, Andy, that I put together, so you have that in case you want to go that route.
Yeah, you did. We're trying to. One of the things I wanted to do with this is, Frank and I have been we've been toiling with the logo for the division, and it seems like every time we get a logo we like, we get hit up the side of the head with it. Our embroiderer could not print out National Model Railroad Association on the bottom of the logo, so we just went with NMRA, and apparently that's going to work. So each time we want to make sure our membership agrees to that. So I had a poll on here, but I don't know what happened to it. So I guess we'll have to poll them at different time and place to see how that if we can upgrade the logo. So
Hey, Andy.
Go ahead.
This is Frank.
Got it.
I'm going to make a motion. You sign up Bill Brown, Bradley White, Chris, and some of these other guys for the next couple of Zoom meetings that we have. Take the load off our shoulders. See if we can get these guys to volunteer and come out.
Frank, oh no.
All I need is a second, guys.
That's an idea. That's an idea.
That's funny.
So
it's good to see. Good to see everybody here, especially from some of the other divisions, Lake Shores and Division 12, and even Syracuse here, because you're right. This is a tough situation, and Andy and I have been trying to do our best here, trying to bring our little division together here in Western New York. And just as we got momentum going, and we had all these things planned for every month, all the way through to the fall, that virus hit and it put the kibosh on it. So. But great work, Andy. You're doing a good job. And like I say, don't let these guys off the hook before this call is over here.
That's why he's my number 2. He's the assistant superintendent, so he keeps me in line.
Well, Andy, all you got to do is ask. You know that.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Bill. So I haven't got anything else. I was going to run a short meeting, but we kind of covered everything that I wanted to talk about other than the logo. So
Andy? Frank, this is Carl Youngers.
Go ahead, Carl.
Our Western New York Railway Historical Society train show is still on schedule for November, obviously subject to change. You're certainly welcome to meet there again this coming year. That's our privilege to have you there. Love what you did here tonight. This is good, and trying to keep people socially together, very, very important. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And listen, before you go, I just want to let people like Pete know, and Bill Brown, and some of the other leaders that are here, nationally known, Chuck. What he's talking about is the Western New York Railway Historical Society is very similar to the National Society, but they're local here in Western New York. And these guys have been tremendous to us, giving us room to meet. They have embraced us when I talked to them and said, look, we don't have any money, and they were like, don't worry about it. We're all in this together. They have real train things, real prototypical things that they're trying to save. And we're trying to do the modeling thing. And they've kind of embraced our division, and our home is at their place in Lee Street. We've been bouncing around to different museums, different places on the road, but when we need a home, these guys have been very generous to us. So if you have some group like that in your area, you might want to, touch base with them, communicate with them to see if you can form some kind of a liaison with each other. Again, they've been wonderful to us, and thank you guys, Western New York.
Andy,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'd say we were lucky in Division 12 that we were able to partner similarly with the French Creek Valley, and they had recently restored a trolley station in Cambridge Springs, south of Erie, and that's our meeting place. That was very lucky for us. But yeah, that's very true. Find similar interests. They're doing the prototype. They had a building available for meetings, and we lucked out.
Exactly. So,
a question for Carl. With maybe going to our next step in July, do you think the building will open up on Lee Street?
We've got to follow whatever the regulations are, of course. We're going to hold our first directors meeting the end of this month live. We've also been Zooming as you are here.
Mm-hmm.
We did have a meeting outdoors last night looking at our rolling stock. So we're going to go live back at Lee Street. We've got plenty of room there to spread out. Sure. Keep in touch.
We'll definitely do that. Thank you.
Andy, I'm going to bow out now. Thank you very much for the invitation. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Take care and keep in touch. Thank you.
Thanks, Fred. Okay, I don't have anything else unless somebody has something amazing to tell me. So.
Andy, I'll just duck in quickly and say hello. I'm Bob Peterson from the Southern Tier Division. Enjoyed the presentations and the meeting, and also hearing about Erie because that's my hometown.
Well, I'm glad you. Now, are you Southern Tier below Erie County, or are you further?
No, I'm in Binghamton, New York.
Binghamton.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so you're with that and you guys are still part of the ID or not?
Beg pardon?
Are you guys part of the ID or you're a separate division?
We have been part of the Niagara Frontier, and we're currently in the process of switching to the Northeast region.
Got
it. They're kind of landlocked in where they are. That everybody else kind of like closed in around them, and they're like no man's land.
Yeah.
I remember talking to you at Syracuse.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'll be up there again.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you all for coming. It was a great night. And look on our www.WNY.com for our webpage, and you'll be able to see all of this again.
Okay.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you. Thanks.
Good night,
Bill.
Andy.
Good night. Thank you.
See you all soon.
Good
Andy,
night.
one quick question.
Sure.
You sent that link to me, did you not?
Of our website? I can certainly do it. I'll make sure I do it, Brad.
All right, because I want to get it to our webmaster, make sure it gets posted on our website.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Brad, what are those studded walls I see behind you?
Yeah.
That's the hobby room?
That's my wife's side of the work room.
Oh, okay.
Gentlemen,
His mic went off.
Your
thank you.
mic went off. Yeah, I've been commenting on his hobby shop in his basement. He's got pegboard up with all these supplies on his walls on Facebook.
Yeah, I had to do something. I was going nuts after moving and being locked at home. So I got my workshop set up and built the kit. So hopefully in about another month or so, I'll be starting on the new layout.
Oh, good. Good for you. Okay.
right,
Andy,
thank
great
you.
job. Really nice. Good to see everybody out there. Really worked out well.
Happy Father's Day, everyone.
Thank you. Pete, thanks for coming. Barry.
Thank you for inviting me. I enjoyed this, guys, and I really wish you the best of luck as you move forward.
Nice meeting you, Pete. Take care.
You'll hear from us again. Barry, thank you very much. Great program.
See you in person next time.
Yeah, you're right.
Springfield.
Yeah, Springfield.
Chuck,
Okay.
thanks for the support.
All right. Everybody leaving? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye now.
Have a good night. Good weekend.
Okay, Ron. See ya.
Yeah.